Magnet television.
Magnet television.
Magnet television.
You're watching Magnet television because what else are you going to do?
This is Gary Jarman from the Cribs calling from my basement in Portland, Oregon, where it feels like I've been for the last millennium or something. So my all-time favourite song, it's a pretty difficult question because it changes a lot, I guess. But the common thing that runs through all my favourite songs are just like it's usually like a nostalgia-inducing memory, like but some kind of like powerful memory. So the first song that I remember being my favourite song was Unchained Melody by the Righteous Brothers. It was used pretty prominently in Ghost, the 1990 movie with Patrick Swayze and Demi Moore, and that was, as a 9-year-old or 10-year-old, I was just really into that film. It really had a profound impact on me. Like, Demi Moore was my first crush at that age. She's sort of androgynous in that movie, which was like to a 9-year-old kid, I was kind of blown away anyway. But that's another story. But I was really into that film, and obviously it pulls on the heartstrings a lot, and that song was like really a big part of the film. And I think like it just it's such an emotional song as well. Whenever I would hear it, it would have a really visceral reaction. Like I remember going to the swimming baths with my parents around that time on a Friday night, and it came on through the tannoy speaker, like in the swimming baths, and so it's echoing around. It's like really powerful. Like I remember being like really moved by it. Like it made me feel kind of sick, and I had to go sit in the changing rooms, and that was it. Like I just didn't want to. It sounds a little bit pretentious now, but I just didn't want to partake in the swimming anymore. I was like really kind of, I think I was just moved by it. It was weird. But still, like I still love it. Like the production's really good, like where the Phil Spector production, where the strings come in the second verse, like, and amazing vocal performance, obviously. But that progression, that classic sort of, like I think it's a 50s progression. That's just stuck with me ever since. It's like that progression always provokes a really strong response in me. Other songs that I really like it always reminds me of certain times in my life. When You Come Back, I'll Feel Like Jesus Coming Off the Cross by Comic Gain. That's like a really important song to me, and that just puts me right back when I was making the New Fellas, and in pretty bad shape from being on the road and just emotionally up and down. Like that song was like a constant during that time, and amazing lyrics, like really really sad, like damaged song. It's like that's definitely like up there, like as far as like the response it provokes for me. I actually find it hard to listen to now for that reason. And for totally other reasons, I love Tarzan Boy by Baltimora. It's just, you can't deny that song. You can't deny it. Like, people might think it's like a throwaway piece of like Euro pop or something, and maybe it is, but it's just so perfect. Like it's about as perfect a pop song as it gets. Awesome. Okay, album that changed my life. It's another tricky one. The first album that I ever owned, the first album that I ever personally owned, was Queen Greatest Hits 2, and I was bought it for Christmas from the Asda. I think so. Christmas '91. I got it on cassette because we only had a cassette player, and I just couldn't believe that I owned an album. To me, it just seemed like such a huge. It sounds crazy now, like, but it seemed like such a huge privilege to have a record of my own. And obviously, it's a really good record. It's a Greatest Hits compilation. I know that most people probably prefer Greatest Hits 1, but Greatest Hits 2 has always been like more dear to me because of the time that I got it. And some of those songs are definitely more straightforward pop songs, more accessible to me at that age when I was like 10. So yeah, 1990 and 1991 was a really important year to me. Like, I was getting into music, and that was a big one for me. But it's probably kind of predictable, but it's hard for me to get past Nevermind, the Nirvana record, because it did so much for me and my brothers. Like, the impact that it had on me and my brothers was really profound. We got it when we were like early teens, and it just changed our life. Like, as cliche as it sounds, it changed our life. Like, it was just we were rebelling at that age, but it was like accessible, and it was noisy, and it was angry, and we were angry. Like, we were frustrated small town kids. And then, like, when we read into the backstory of Nirvana, like, again, like, that being small town freak kids, it was just really powerful. And again, another cliche, but it made us realize that anyone can do that, and that's exactly how we felt. Like, we would then book like the local rehearsal room, and you would cover Nirvana songs and cover Ramones songs, and that was how you learned, So I really owe a great debt to that. It's something about, like, knowing that people who grew up in like similar sort of small towns and like isolated communities broke out. Like, in the pre-internet age, like, to kids like us, that was just like, it was so meaningful, and it took away that excuse that, like, oh, you're not from London, so you can't do it. It took that excuse away. Just owe them a great debt. Like, and there's also one more, like, the Bee Gees album Size Isn't Everything from 1993. That's a really important record to me and Ryan. We listened to it a lot after Freddie Mercury died, and just before we got into Nirvana. That was like our bridge record. It's a really cool album. It's really poppy, and like kind of got some dance beats on there, like New Jack Swing or whatever. But we loved that album, and like, still now, if I put that record on, me and Ryan can recite every lyric, sing along every harmony. We just know it like the back of our hand. Again, we bought it on cassette, and we just listened to it religiously. And you might not be able to tell, like, immediately, like, from an aesthetic perspective, but to me and Ryan, like, we got so many of our ideas that, like, stuck with us over years about how melodies and harmonies are constructed, and then, like, backing vocals and stuff. Like, it's really deeply ingrained into our idea of what pop songwriting should be. So, and we didn't realize that for a while until, like, later. We were like, oh yeah, we really got a lot from that album. The best concert I ever participated in it has to be Reading Festival 2008, because, and Leeds Festival 2008 too. Like, we headlined the second stage, which was just a massive buzz for us, because, like, the Reading Festival was the one that we always went to as kids, so to get to headline one of the stages was like totally surreal. But it was really cool. Like, we hung out all day, watched it get dark. Before we went on, you could just hear the crowd of chanting for us and chanting for the band name and Wakefield, the town that we're from. It was really cool, really exciting, and it was a really good show. Like, it was really easy. Festival shows can be kind of tricky, but that was a really easy one. Just a really incredible experience. And then at the end of one of the shows, I think it might have been Leeds, we ran over time. The Metallica were on the main stage, and we were on the second stage, and we ran out of time, and they cut the power on us. But it was really cool. Like, the whole crowd just continued singing the song, which was just like it was really dramatic. It was like they were trying to pull us off the stage, like the stage managers were trying to pull us off the stage, but you know, however 20,000 people or however many people in that tent were singing the song, so it was like it was, we had like had our fans on our side, like almost literally. It was an amazing experience. And then Reading 2012 was really good too, again on the second stage. We just got a lot of good memories with that festival. It was really an important one for us. And best concert that I ever attended, it's sort of, it's hard to answer this because like I've spent my whole life at concerts, I feel like now, but I really enjoyed getting to see Queen at the Isle of Wight festival, and we actually played that day too, so that's kind of like we participated and attended, but that was amazing just because like Queen was such a formative influence on us, and just to like, we played right before them at the Isle of Wight, and so just to see our gear set up right in front of Queen's flight cases, and like that was cool. And then when we came off, just to watch them from the side of the stage, and just like all them songs, like they're just so you know, so ubiquitous in my life. Like that was, it was an amazing gig, but like it was also just a really incredible experience, because it was like when you start in a band at like, you know, 10 years old with Freddie Mercury and Queen as your heroes, you never think that like X amount of years down the line you're going to be sharing a stage with that band. So it was the combination of like how good the songs are and how good the stagecraft was, like coming together with just how incredible it felt for me and my brothers to be in that situation. So that was really cool. Alright, in my opinion, my most embarrassing musical moment would be a festival that the Cribs played in Germany. I think it was 2005, maybe. Played a festival called Hurricane Festival, which is quite aptly named because, like, right before we played, we were on one of the outdoor stages, but right before we played, a hurricane came through, or like some major like wind and thunderstorm. It totally flooded the stage, almost blew the stage away, and we assumed that we weren't going to be playing at that point because it was right before we played, and so like we just assumed that our set was going to be cancelled. But anyway, our set wasn't cancelled. They wanted us to go out and play 15 minutes, like just to fill time. But the stage was completely waterlogged, so like we had to go up there to set the gear up, and there's some people waiting. There wasn't many because everyone had just been taking shelter. We had to sweep all the rain off the stage and then set up and like worry about like, you know, power, like electricity and stuff like that. Anyway, we finally get, it's like a stress stream. We finally get set up. People had just stood there like miserable in the wet, and then we set up on the stage. It's like super slippy, so like everything we do, it was like something out of a clown show. Like we were just, you know, everything and we used to wear Beatle boots too, you know, like with the Cuban heels. Like everything we did, we were just slipping and sliding. The drums were moving, the kick drum was moving forward and going all over the place. Cymbal stands were falling over. At one point, because of how slippy it was, we couldn't tighten the mic stands correctly because our hands were wet. So at one point we would go to sing to mic, and the whole thing would just collapse. So I'd just be spinning round, you know. It was not only a terrible performance, but it was like the Three Stooges or something. It was atrociously bad, like to the point of it being funny. And to be honest, I don't think we ever really overcame that in Germany. I think that was maybe too much of a burden for us to carry.
Cine.